There's a new dimension to the controversy over who collects value-added tax in Nigeria. The governors of Nigerian southern states have collectively resolved that this falls within the powers of the states. They also restate their earlier position that the next president of Nigeria must come from the southern part of the state. So rising for their meeting in the southeastern Enugu state yesterday, the governors stressed the need for them to leverage on legislative competence of their various state houses of assembly and their federal lawmakers to ensure the inclusion of fiscal federalism in the Nigerian constitution through the ongoing constitutional amendment process. All right, Tundu, fiscal federalism, VAT, Southern Governors Meeting, all of this as we play around for 2023.
Well, yes. I'm not sure that it's actually within the powers of governors to decide that VAT will go to the states. I think that should be for another arm of government, the legislature and the judiciary, not the executive. But having said that, we all await the outcome in the Supreme Court, that showdown between River State, now that Lagos State has joined, and the FIRS. But I also found it very interesting that I just feel we keep talking on this show now about federalism. You cannot stop an idea whose time has come. The mistake I feel that the APC made was that they were right in putting federalism front and center on their electoral manifesto, which is why we had that near impossible feat of that exchange of power from an incumbent president to a presidential contender because of factors like restructuring. There was a clamor for it. You cannot beat the zeitgeist. You must join it. The APC, instead of tapping into the zeitgeist and leading, they're now sort of being dragged along, aren't they? Everybody wants federalism on all levels, fiscal and otherwise. So that's also very important. This is just where we are now. This Southern Governors Forum is bipartisan, and they're all in agreement. The most, vast majority of the Nigerian public, all in agreement. The time has come for federalism, restructuring. It's now. Has to happen. The other issue for me that I found very interesting was talking about constitutional amendments. Obviously, that needs to go through the National Assembly, two-thirds majority, Senate, and House of Reps, according to our Constitution, I think Section 9 of the Constitution, and then has to go through 24 states out of 36 states. So that's where the governors come in. And we know the power of the governors. We've always talked about how state houses of assembly are largely just rubber stamps. The governors are almost omnipotent in their states, and they can get that done. The time has come, and I'm really excited to see this moving train, finally, so that Nigeria can function.
Kabati?
Okay, this is the third meeting of the Southern Governors Forum, 17 of them. Their inaugural meeting was on 11th May in Asaba, Delta State. And at that meeting, they had reached certain decisions about security, about open grazing, about the 2023 presidency of Nigeria being zoned to the south, and also about a number of other issues. They had another meeting. I think it was Lagos that hosted that. And this is their third meeting, hosted by the government of Enugu State. And at the end of the day, they came up with about 6 resolutions, which include one, expression of satisfaction with the steps that have been taken by some of the states in line with what was agreed on May 11. And indeed, some of the states had initiated, or enacted laws with regard to open grazing, which they had resolved. Was a problem for there are various states in the southern part of the country. Some of the states that have enacted the laws include Ondo State, for example, and I think also Ogun State and some other states that have made laws against open grazing as agreed. Now, second, they talked about fiscal federalism, the need for fiscal federalism in Nigeria. And it was along that line that they further resolved that states must collect value-added tax. A lot of people have focused on this value-added tax. Now, you now find all the 17 governors of the state, of the South, saying we are, of one mind. There is a consensus addendum, as it is said, among all the governors of the southern part of Nigeria, that states should be the ones to collect the VAT. Yes, they may not be in a position to have the final say on it, but they're beginning to operate now as a pressure group. And their opinion you cannot disregard because it is important. They represent their states, and they also speak invariably for the people that they represent. regardless of whatever happens at the end of the day, when the case goes all the way to the Supreme Court, but it will be on record that these governors at a particular time, were collectively opposed to abuse of fiscal federalism, to the open grazing conflict that has affected the economy of many of the subnationals in the southern part of the country. And they expect to be taken seriously. Now, what is important about this group is that it is a bipartisan group. In other words, some of the governors are, in fact, maybe you say multi-partisan. Some of the governors who were part of this, they belong to different parties, the APC, the PDP, and even ABGA. And you find those governors speaking beyond party lines and saying this is what is in the best interest of our people. It may speak to a certain polarization in Nigerian politics, but it is significant that people from a certain part of the country can agree on a set of ideas or principles or options or choices, depending on what you think is the appropriate word. Now, they also talked about the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, and the planned commercialization, privatization of the NNPC. And they said they align themselves with the position that has been taken by the larger Nigerian Governors Forum. And what is the concern of the larger Nigerian Governors Forum? It is simply that the interests of the subnationals was not taken along, and that the representations that they made, their input into that law, was simply ignored. After this particular meeting, there's going to be the next meeting in Rivers State. I think that what the southern governors are doing beyond partisan interest is to get involved in this big, larger national question in Nigeria about equity, about justice. And I think that, they should be listened to, but who is going to listen to them? It's now for each state, each governor, to converse this, at their various subnational levels. So we look forward to the next meeting. But on VAT, this is a counter, a direct, position taken against the FIRS that keeps saying the National Assembly should amend the law. And people have said, look, the people who are going to amend the law, as I asked for by FIRS, are they not from the states governed by many of these governors? So what you will find, even if the lawmakers try to amend the law, will be a battle royale with the governors and everybody else involved in it. But as for the conversation around restructuring, there is a consensus across all lines, even geographical, that Nigeria cannot continue the way it is.
Dr. Bati, you said the battle royale, but the conversation and the horse trading as regards the future of Nigeria is fast becoming a scene in the Casino Royale. All right, that's about it this morning. We'll take a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Rotu Sodiri, Michael Wilson, Adesuwa Moroa, Aaron Akerjola to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19 and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotus.
Morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yes. So we're sticking with Nigeria today. Lots of interesting stuff coming out of there. Okay, debt. All right, we've talked about debt all week. Center for Social Justice on debt servicing. Doin Salami, the chair of the Presidential Economic Advisory Committee, and his report. Well, now the Debt Management Office is officially announced, of course, that it is tapping the international capital markets for Eurobonds, looking to raise about $6.2 billion from the Eurobond markets. I believe today they'll be having a virtual call with potential investors. Local investors are also going to be involved. Usually they just focus on the international investors, but they're looking at local investors. Why looking for this money? Well, budget deficit is over 5 trillion naira. It has to be plugged. Got to get the money from somewhere. And but of course there is the mounting, as we've talked all week about the issues with rising debt and what it means down the line. Again, between 2015 and 2020, 11.9 trillion naira spent on debt servicing versus 8.3 trillion spent on capital expenditure. So your debt servicing exceeds your capital expenditure. So, but hey, what are you going to do? Book runners have been assigned, put together, some other foreign brokerages and so on and so forth to put this together. So, and then the investors will get a chance to ask, the Minister of Finance, members of the Nigeria's economic team questions, before, putting funds to this international Eurobond. But again, remember, central banks around the world, the Fed, Bank of England, interest rates are the European Central Bank, interest rates are at record lows. So, it's a good time to go head out there and raise debt. Of course, the DMO did put in, state that, look, it is aware of FX risk, right? As far as the cost of borrowing in foreign exchange. So there you have it. We're tapping the Eurobond market. And local investors, if you want to get in, can also get in there as well. So again, a virtual conference will be put together. Also, still in Nigeria, the Monetary Policy Committee should be concluding its meeting that it rescheduled for yesterday and today. The benchmark interest rates has been at 11.5%, cash reserve ratio 27.5, liquidity ratio 30%. So all the parameters are expected to remain in place. We do not expect the Monetary Policy Committee to make any changes. Why? Inflation has been decelerating. We talked about inflation on the show. We got the GDP figures Q2, the 5%, base effect, but 5% growth in the second quarter. So the accommodative stance of the Monetary Policy Committee is to allow for its measures to slowly seep into the economy. So I don't see any reason why they would make any changes. Who knows? Well, we'll see about 2 p.m. This afternoon is when we'll be hearing from the Central Bank Governor Gordon Emefiele with his address to journalists. But again, we're expecting the rates to be, benchmark interest rate to be at 11.5. All right, now we go to another very interesting topic on foreign exchange. Let me just put this up for folks out there. The National Economic Intelligence Committee, there's an act, 2004 act, that guides the activity of this committee. Their responsibilities include analyzing the annual budget, extracting all economic measures that need to be enforced from the budget, analyzing the monetary guidelines issued by the central bank, monitoring, identifying revenue hurdles like tax evasion and so on and so forth. It's a 12-member committee appointed by the president. It has a chair, and they are empowered. Now, if you take a look at this, I'm looking at there should be a second slide here on penalties and offenses and penalties. Very interesting. You see what's highlighted there. It is against the law to engage in foreign exchange transactions other than the official market. It's right there in front of you. Also against the law to participate in rates that are higher than what is approved by the bank. The bank there is the central bank. Also, and this is highlighted in yellow, and I'll tell you why it's highlighted in yellow. Against the law, according to the National Economic Intelligence Committee Act, to publish or cause to be published FX or interest rates other than what has been determined by the bank. Now, this has come up. Not sure if you see what's been going on social media. We couldn't share any screenshots because there's sensitive information with account numbers and nothing's been officially, no announcements have been put by. But Aboki FX has come under the spotlight. There was an online publication that shared some screenshots that got a notice from somebody, a body outside saying that you've been publishing FX rates in accordance with Aboki FX and you are in contravening these laws. And you should desist from doing that. So it sparked this, right now, on social media right now, this whole conversation on the law that is in place now and whether or not you should be publishing foreign exchange rates outside of what is officially recognized by the central bank. Now, have websites that are publishing rates, are they causing panic in the market? Because honestly, the rate now, the parallel market rate is at 560 or 575. It's insane. I'm sorry. I can't imagine how we've gone from what, under 500 to almost 600 now in just a matter of weeks. So who's causing that? Is it speculators? Is it the websites? That is the discussion. But that's the law. I'm putting the law in front of everyone. That is the law. Finally, there are reports that some private institutions are under investigation for receiving school fees, tuition in foreign exchange. So we understand from the little digging that we've been doing, and again, there have been some stuff floating around online, but because of sensitivity of, we don't want to put any account information out there, but we understand that they're being investigated. So a whole lot going on between debt and foreign exchange in Africa's largest economy.
Yeah.
That's our update.
I mean, Rotus, a great point you raised about debt. I'm going to chime in on that. But you see, all of this foreign exchange debacle is just an indication that we've not sorted our matters properly. There's a big foreign exchange problem. So the clampdown definitely will be there. Don't publish this rate, don't publish that rate. Bookie FX and the likes, vis-a-vis the law. It just shows that we have a big problem with our foreign exchange. And how can we sort it out? I sound like a broken record player now, Rotus. You need to produce. You need to produce. You need to export. Case in point, America and US will be making $40 billion off Australia because Australia wants this thing called a submarine that is an underwater equipment, military equipment, vehicle, ship. Then America says, I can produce it. And the UK too says, let's work together on it. BAE Systems. And guess what?
And Australia snubbed France. Australia
snubbed France, and the money goes to them. Australia snubbed France because France says I can produce a diesel-powered submarine, and the UK says I can produce a nuclear-powered submarine. So if you produce, you will get foreign exchange. That's what it means. And that's the pure and simple thing about the economy. On debt, Rotus, it is shocking that we have gone back to where we were in 2004. Rotus, we all forget in 2004, President Olusegun Obasanjo did say, I would resign if that will make, the Paris Club forgive us our debts. And the Paris Club did do that. Then the debt of Nigeria stood at $30 billion. We had spent 35 billion.
Well, was key in that.
Yeah, we had spent 35 billion leading up to 2004 to service the debt of Nigeria. That year, 2004, we spent $1.4 billion to service the debts. That was the entire budget for the health and the education sector. Today, we have gone back to where we were in 2004. Debt is over 30 billion. I don't know who is going to bail us out. We don't think. That's why there's a strong argument that please don't forgive African countries their debts. You know why? They go back to their bad ways.
So the way I'm going to phrase this question, is this a case of the CBN versus the BDCs? There's clearly a supply problem, like you just said, Rufai, and Godwin Emefiele is going to have to address that supply problem. What's happening in the black market is merely a reflection of that, the shortage at the official markets. So really, what's the solution here?
Well, quickly on Aboki FX.
Export
you didn't
more.
get to respond.
Okay, you want to give a response?
Yes.
No, it's what, look, Rufai said it all here. Use the submarine example. You've got to export more.
Yes, the central bank has banned 50 items that are not contraband. There's a problem here with foreign exchange. And it could also be said that the black markets might be trying to sabotage. Yes, they might be trying to sabotage the CBN. That's also another argument there. I just wanted to know your take.
Well, no, Tundu, it's a supply issue. Of course, ending the channel to the BDCs and then putting it through to the banks. The issue with the banks is that if you go to a bank now, can you get FX from your bank to pay for a streaming service subscription? No, you cannot. It's PTA, it's BTA, it's medical services, it's school fees, and that's it. So if you need something outside of that, you will go to the other means, and that could be that. Yes, it's a supply issue. That's why we're seeing pressure there on the other hand as well. But then it goes back to Rufai's point. I know that's long term. If you export more, you won't have all these issues. So
we need the enabling environment to encourage us to produce more and export more.
Well, on Aboki FX, which you brought up, Aboki FX is an online platform which reports figures on foreign exchange in Nigeria and announces those figures. And you refer to the NFU Act, Section 11, Section 6 thereof, which says only the Central Bank of Nigeria, can publish figures with regard to what the exchange rate is. Well, some lawmakers in Nigeria, signed up to that law and approved it. How did that happen in the first place? So there is a question about how laws are made in Nigeria. And if Aboki FX is just an online platform and it's reporting what is going on in the parallel market, okay, it's like blaming Google. As I had Fisayo Shoyombo saying this morning, blaming Google for traffic logjam on the streets of a particular city. Because if you are just reporting the situation, then you cannot be blamed for reporting the truth. However, the position of the CBN is that only the CBN can announce figures with regard to Forex, and that the parallel market cannot be used as a benchmark for reporting the health of the Naira. Now, the other leg of it is that FX is being accused to be involved in some kind of manipulation and doing business on the side. Okay, maybe if they can prove that. However, FX is based in Arizona in the United States. But the related question is this: is the Naira under attack? On July 17, the Central Bank of Nigeria decided to shut out the BDCs. Okay, is this a case of Forex speculators doing what they call a jump and dump? They manipulate the parallel market, drive up the figures, and complicate the liquidity problem within the system so as to force the CBN to act, to respond. So is this a backlash coming from some speculators? But we can't prove that. We don't have evidence in that regard. Then what options are available to the Central Bank of Nigeria? Some people have talked about liberalizing the Forex. Some people have talked about other measures that the CBN can take. But the clear matter is that if we have these multiple exchange rates, then we will continue to have issues. You talked about parents paying school fees in dollars. Well, if your child is going to school abroad, we expect that, okay, maybe you'll be charging dollars or other currencies. But the bigger concern is, as I pointed out on this program, the integrity of the Naira itself. There are many schools in this country that charge school fees in dollar. There are many landlords that charge house rent in dollars. So why is it that we talk about the Naira all the time and we really cannot protect the Naira and ensure that it works? Now, as to borrowing, yes, yesterday we looked at Dr. Salami's report on the state of the economy. And apart from saying that all these borrowings are unsustainable and unmaintainable, and I'm using his direct words, he gave certain recommendations. Within 24 hours later, the Nigerian government is now talking about Eurobond to borrow about $5.2 billion or so to fund the deficit in the 2021 budget. The average Nigerian will be skeptical. Who is going to pay back this money? Nigerians in about 30 years. And why is it that some of those suggestions made by Dr. Salami have not been looked into? Because he has specific recommendations, some of which are outlined yesterday. Could it be that the government is not even listening to his own Economic Advisory Council? If that is the case, Dr. Salami should resign and go back to his main work.
Well, thank you, Ruth. There's a lot to chew on there.
Excellent points, Doctor. Thank you.
Moving on now to more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. So we saw the retail sales, which massively outperformed in the United States yesterday. So clearly the Americans went out and shopped. However, the jobs figures from the United States continued a slight improvement, but not a lot. So therefore, a lot to chew on. Asia Pacific markets continued downwards. Hong Kong continued to slide. Evergrande down now 5%. I'll come on to that in a moment. The benchmark Hang Seng slipped about 1%, about regulatory concerns at the moment. Evergrande down about 5%. Mainland Chinese stocks relatively mooted. Let's look at this Chinese property company, this giant that's actually indebted. It's so huge that it's felt that the fallout from it will extend, if it does fail, would fall out beyond, well beyond China. And it also would be the biggest test for the Chinese financial system it's probably ever had. We're talking about HSBC, we're talking about Standard Chartered, we're talking about investors all over the world, really, who are going to suffer if this company goes bust. It's also into electric vehicles, healthcare services, consumer products, video and television production. It even has a theme park. It has 200,000 employees, and it says it directly creates 3.8 million jobs every year. That's according to what's on its website. So let's hope that something is agreed there to stop it collapsing, but at the moment it looks under threat. Now, I said a long time ago on this program, we were talking about China and whether it's worth going to military loggerheads with it. I don't think it is. I think it's about trade, and now China is applying to join the Trans-Pacific Trade Pact to boost its economic clout. Yes, it's put an application into the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Commerce Ministry said, and it looks to try to boost what's going. It's rather snappily, the initials are better, TPP, signed by 11 countries, including Australia, Canada, Chile, Japan, New Zealand in 2018. And it looks like China wants to join that. So there you are. Trade may be giving it an important discursive and also discussion-worthy economic counterweight to China's regional influence, and also maybe stop the war talk and the rest of it. So, as far as the United States is concerned, futures steady and overnight trading. The Dow futures fell about 20 points. We talked about those retail sales yesterday. For some reason, that made the markets go better. I would have thought not. I've been in equities. I've been worried about a rise in interest rates, but there we are. And also, the jobs didn't do a great deal in the United States. So September is continuing to be that sort of month that it always is. The stock markets always seem to fall a little in September, and it's proving correct right now. Now, as far as the EU is concerned, and I should say that the press office of the European Commission has denied this story. However, it's worth airing. Apparently, and this is in the FT this morning, there's an unpublished inflation estimate. I won't bore you with the detail of it, but the fact of it is that it points towards an earlier interest rate rise within the European Union, pricing in not the end of 2023, but maybe before then. That's according to that report out today. As far as the UK is concerned, the Chancellor seeing the massive borrowing that's going on at the moment. Rishi Sunak's going to set out new fiscal rules to rein in UK borrowing. That comes in the budget next month. And what he's going to try to do is to do what a lot of chancellors have done. They say, right, we're not going to do day-to-day spending. It's not going to fund that. We'll take a long-term view, and that gives the market something to focus on. Good luck with that. Never worked in the past. May well work as we go on the moment. One of our biggest shops, you'll have heard of it, John Lewis, big bastion of the high street, John Lewis, Waitrose and so on. Well known because its staff are known as partners and they have a share in the profits. They're actually chartering ships to make sure that their shops have Christmas stock in time, and there's not empty shelves at the moment. I won't go into all the supply chain woes we've talked about before, but you know very well what they are. Finally, commodities, and oil has maintained its gains. Sky-high natural gas prices, we talked about those yesterday. Also, Gulf of Mexico, a bit on hurricane alert as well, as you can imagine. Gold, though, finally collapsing overnight. It really tested those lower ranges at the moment. Dollar's getting stronger, therefore gold more expensive. And it faces a test at $17.50 an ounce, if you follow those kind of things, if the US dollar remains strong today. I hope you have a lovely weekend. That is your global view.
All right, Michael, so what is the ECB afraid of? Isn't what was published on the Financial Times true about those benchmarks? You know, why are they trying to deny it? But it's there, it's true.
No, they're not denying the benchmarks. What they're doing is they're denying there's been an internal inflation report, which is in contrast to what they're saying publicly. That's the story that they're denying. No, the target is there. The 2% target is always there. Always been the same for central banks. Same in the United States, same in the UK, same as far as the ECB is concerned. It's not the target, it's the question of when. And the fear is anything that adds to the flames of worries about inflation and therefore rising interest rates is starting stories like this. That's the story that they're denying, not the target, the fact that there's an internal report.
Well, I mean, we don't seem to have more time, so I'll be brief. First, your comment on the CPTPP that China is not applying to join. Yesterday, a letter was sent to the New Zealand Prime Minister. Yes, it will boost China's economy, particularly as China is doing this against the background of the RCEP that it signed earlier. But it is a response by China to that, agreement between China and the AUKUS. That's what I'm referring to, because it came within 24 hours.
No. I don't think it is.
Well,
no, they couldn't have done it that quickly. I don't think it is. I think what it is it shows a long-term wish to engage in trade with the rest of the world. I'm hoping it's. I don't think it's anything to do with yesterday at all. I don't think they could have put that together as quickly as this. I think the request has gone in as part of their long-term plan.
But yesterday I asked you whether that KUS is going to lead to World War III, and you said, well, maybe Cold War. And later in the day, China was using the same expression when they were dismissing it as irresponsible and provocative. But in the House of Commons yesterday, former Prime Minister Theresa May raised the same question. Would the Prime Minister commit Britain to war, particularly if China attacks Taiwan? So we're back to that same issue in the front burner about the possibility of a future war.
Well, indeed. However, I would say, and you know this very well, don't you, that you can say what you like from the backbenchers of a political party, and you can provoke a kind of question. There is no answer to that question. How could there be? What would you actually say? Would you say, oh, yes, of course we're going to go to war? No, you wouldn't. You'd say, you'd see how things develop. I think that what it's all about is what I've said before, is that if you want to be strong, you've got to be strong. You've got to stand up to things, and then you have a discussion when you're all at the same table with the same deck of cards. Simple as that.
All right, thank you so much, Michael, for the time. Really appreciate you. Adesola Mora, over to you now, COVID-19 pandemic update.
Thank you very much, Rufai. Good morning, guys. Coronavirus has infected more than 227 million people globally, according to the Johns Hopkins University latest tally. Over 4.6 million people, unfortunately, have lost their lives to the virus. Vaccination also continues globally. Over 5.81 billion doses have been administered. There is a stark gap between vaccination programs in different countries and in different continents. Tundun, you brought this to the fore yesterday while we were speaking on the COVID update. China, health authorities in the country say they have fully vaccinated more than 1 billion people against coronavirus, and that's about 72% of the world's most populous nation. However, lockdowns remain largely in China as they battle new surge of the Delta variant. Here in Nigeria, cases of infections continue to fluctuate. 601 new cases were recorded in the last 24 hours. Lagos posted the most infections for the day with 173 cases, followed by Edo and the Federal Capital Territory with 97 and 68 cases respectively. Now, almost 4.3 million Nigerians have received the jab of the coronavirus vaccines in the country, while 1.74 million individuals have been fully vaccinated. That's according to the data by the NPHCDA, which is the primary vaccination body in the country. Vaccine is free in Nigeria and open to those aged 18 and above. We do advise people to get vaccinated. Now, away from Nigeria, all heads of state and the many diplomats that will be attending the United Nations General Assembly, otherwise known as the UNGA, in New York next week, will have to provide proof of vaccinations. The decision has the backing of the General Assembly's president, but this is prompting an angry response from guess who? Russia. In a letter to colleagues, Russian UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia calls the requirement discriminatory. And of course, the Brazilian president has welcomed Russia's concerns. President Jair Bolsonaro says he will not get vaccinated while attending the UNGA. It is yet to see how that will happen. But Jair Bolsonaro's comments come as his government wants to halt COVID-19 vaccination for most adolescents in Brazil. The federal government is citing a death under investigation and adverse events after some 3.5 million teens have already been immunized, and several state governments in the country are vying to press on. The interesting thing in this story is that Anvisa, which is the Brazil's federal health authority, regulatory authority, is saying they don't have evidence to back what the president is saying or what his government is saying to say, let's halt the vaccination in teens, there's no evidence to show. There's been a death, yes, but they don't see more than that to halt the vaccination. So we watched the space to see what happens in Brazil. Will the teens get vaccinated or not? Fingers crossed. While Russia is angry over the decision in New York to have diplomats vaccinated to attend UNGA, back home in Russia, President Vladimir Putin says dozens of his staff have been infected with the coronavirus and that he will continue to self-isolate because of the outbreak. The Kremlin had announced this week that the president would self-isolate after one person in his circle was infected, although President Putin tested negative. Now the president is saying that the infections were extensive, so he would remain in isolation for longer. Finally, this morning, let's go to France, where the country has now suspended around 3,000 healthcare workers for failing to comply with vaccination orders. The health minister revealed this figure during a radio interview, and he says that this suspension is temporary for some of the workers who have now agreed to go get vaccinated.
I don't understand. Make it make sense. You just juxtapose these two stories of Russia kicking against the vaccine mandate at UNGA while President Putin is self-isolating. Is this what he wants for all the world leaders to leave the United Nations General Assembly, have to go home and self-isolate and grind their respective countries to a halt? I'm not quite sure I see the logic here. Do you?
Well, I don't see what the Russian ambassador is trying. I don't see the point he's trying to make here. It's for the greater good to say people need to get vaccinated to attend the event. And then back home, the Russian president, who was skeptical in the beginning about this pandemic, is beginning to take certain measures that should be commended. He's self-isolating. He doesn't wear a mask, but at least he's self-isolating to say, you know, I need to be protected. I need to make sure others are protected. But we have his ambassador saying, let's attend the UNGA without being vaccinated. We don't need to show proof. I don't see the sense in what he's saying, but I see a lot of sense in what New York City officials are trying to do with the UNGA. Well,
isn't this part of the politics of it? And there must be a subtext somewhere that we may not be able to put our fingers on immediately, because it will appear that the position of Russia with regard to the COVID mandate at the UN is self-contradictory. President Putin himself was quoted in the last 24 hours saying that it's not one or two persons around his inner circle that has been infected. It's scores of persons, and persons who are directly involved in work with the head of state. He himself may have tested negative, but he made it clear that more and more people will have to self-isolate. And now you have at the UN General Assembly, Russia, opposing the need for vaccine passes, vaccine passports, before they will be allowed into the main plenary room of the UN General Assembly. Meanwhile, at the same time, just to show you how politics is at the heart of this, in France, 3,000 persons have been suspended from work. Health workers. We're told it's temporary, but it's a way on the part of the French authorities of getting more people vaccinated. Concerns have been expressed about how this can affect healthcare delivery, but the state insists that people must get vaccinated, even if there is one man in Nice, a fire service worker called Thierry Passon, who has gone out there to set up a tent to protest what is going on. But across Europe, there is a move towards vaccine passports and compulsory vaccination from Italy to the Netherlands and in other parts of the world. But I think we'll keep getting this tension about politics here and there. As for Brazil, I don't think the states would take Kugera, the health minister, seriously, because all the states from Sao Paulo to other states have said no, they will continue to vaccinate 12 to 17-year-olds, and that there's no connection, and Visa is insisting, between the death of that 16-year-old and that triggered this reaction from the health ministry. There's no connection, they insist. There's no evidence to show that he died because of the Pfizer vaccine that he took. In other parts of the world anyway, persons between 12 and 15 up to 17 are taking the vaccine. And not much adversity or adverse effects have been reported.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you as well.